If you're a small business owner, not knowing how to read your P&L could be costing you thousands of dollars in profitability. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how it's structured and exactly how you should be reading it from a small business owner's perspective. My name is Alex. I'm a CPA, and my background was auditing the financial statements of publicly traded companies. Now we help small businesses through our accounting and advisory services. And this is how you read a P&L in less than 5 minutes. So we're going to start in terms of timeline, right? Typically a P&L is looked at on a monthly basis, a quarterly basis, or an annual basis. So it goes typically from a beginning point A to an ending point B. So in order to understand the P&L, you first need to understand what timeline am I looking at, right? So for this example, I'm looking at November 2024. Okay, that's the timeline of all of the data in here. So now that I know that, let's kind of go through the overall structure. So we start at the top with revenue, right? These are obviously my sales coming in the door. And then we have everything going out the door, my expenses. And then at the end, revenue minus expenses, we're left with our net income or our net loss, right? And so that's how we determine if we're profitable or not. So let's kind of go in depth with each, starting at the top. So with our revenue, you can see we have $303,000 of sales. Okay, that makes sense. Now, cost of goods sold. What is a cost of goods sold? Our cost of goods sold, aka COGS, that you'll see here, is any expense related to the production of revenue. So if you have a construction company, right, this could be your supplies and materials to produce that revenue from the construction, right? And then you under that, you have your direct labor, which is the same kind of idea. This is just your employees' payroll that are directly attributed to generating revenue, right? So this would be your guys on the job site. If you run a home service company, this would be your guys going to the home, generating the revenue. And so your COGS are critical because your revenue minus your COGS gives you what's called gross profit. Okay, gross profit is one of the most overlooked figures. And 9 times out of 10, if a business is struggling with profitability, it's the gross profit or gross margin. The way you need to think about that is this is your engine of the business, right? You have your revenue minus your direct cost to produce that revenue. That is your core engine of the business. And so if you're not looking at cost of goods sold, right, my supplies and materials, my hard costs, and my direct labor to produce that revenue separately, I can't take apart that engine and see under the hood, hey, where am I bleeding cash? Is it my pricing? Is it my labor to produce the revenue? Is it my direct cost to produce the revenue? The visibility into that full engine is critical to understand your business, okay? So that's the top section, revenue, cost of goods, and direct labor. That gives you your gross profit. Now, under that is all of your operational expenses. This is anything not directly related to revenue. So you have your facilities. We broke it into 5 basic components, right? So you have facilities, which is like your rent and utilities, your marketing, your administrative labor. This is any labor that's not direct, right? So this may be your salary as a manager, a project manager, your back office staff, even as the CEO. If you're not directly involved in producing the revenue, you're going to put your salary under administrative labor. So we can segregate that direct versus administrative. So if that's not something you're doing now, that's critical to be able to see that segregation of direct versus admin labor, because if you put your admin labor in the direct labor, you're now throwing off your gross profit we talked about, because your salary isn't directly attributed to producing that revenue. So we need to segregate these appropriately to get a true gauge on the different profit throughout the P&L, right? And then you have your payroll tax and benefits, and we just have an other expense category here. Now, under this, there's what's called other income and expenses. This is anything not related to the operating expenses. So typically you'll see interest expense here, you'll see depreciation. This is anything unrelated to the operations of the business. So just keep that in mind. That's why that section is segregated down below. Now, after all of the items we talked about, you are left with your net income. Think of when you hear net income, just immediately think of a net catching everything that falls below. This is what's left over at the end of the day, right? So it's going to be either a net income or a net loss. And that's how you're going to be able to tell if you're profitable or not. So you can see in this scenario, after all expenses, that $303,000 is actually left with a net loss of $58,000. So this figure, in congruence with the gross profit, are your most important metrics of success when you're looking at the profit and loss. Because I want to know, is my engine of the business profitable? Okay, looks like we are. We've got 75,000 in gross profit. Okay, but how about after my operating expenses and other expenses? Well, something's happening here. It looks like at a net loss of 58,000, and that's when the advisory comes into play, and we can explain why are we producing a net loss? What is driving that net loss, and how can we fix it? So that's kind of a basic overview of the profit and how you should be looking at it as a business owner. You want to know, just to recap, your revenue at the top, your direct cost of goods sold and labor to produce that revenue, which leaves you with your gross margin. And then after you understand the engine of the business as you're looking at this, you can then move down to your operating expenses, and then you're left with your net profit or loss at the end of the day. And then you can determine, hey, is my business profitable for this period of time, and optimize as necessary. If this is something you don't have any visibility into as a business owner, this is what we do for our clients on a monthly basis, is produce a profit and loss that's simple and easy to read. And we utilize QuickBooks Online to do that, and also provide the guidance on those financials and get you to the next level in terms of providing those answers. Okay, so it looks like you have a net loss, but what can we do about that? How do we actually fix that net? At the foundation level, we need accurate data to know what's, and then after that, you need the guidance to get to the next step. So if you're interested in that, feel free to book a free consultation at strongholdaccountants.com, and we'd be happy to do a free consult and get your QuickBooks Online set up and get you on what we call the CPA system, which stands for Clear Numbers, Protection, and Advisory. It's a flat weekly subscription that handles all of the bookkeeping and accounting and advisory on top of that. So if you're interested, please go to strongholdaccountants.com. Again, my name is Alex, and thank you so much for watching, and hope to see you.